No action on Capitol Hill, but a lot of action and records on Wall Street today. Now, a new report from Goldman Sachs saying the 10-year bull market is primed to continue next year, in part because D.C. gridlock. You like that call? Hey, let's ask our market pro, Scott Martin and Monica Meta, with us in studio. Monica, an amazing market. Now it's what they call melting up. All the pros, they have to jump in because they've missed this, but just it feels like everything is in sync. The economy, where we're heading, it's hard to find a reason not to like this market.
Charles, I'm usually a pessimist, but all year when I see you, I've been saying, hey, it's okay, it's going to be okay, and it's going to continue to be okay. I don't disagree with what they're saying. I think going into an election year, you are going to see a level of stability with the markets. You're not going to see things fall apart. And right now, you're seeing things go higher because of what we're hearing about with trade. China's come forward and said that, they are going to take steps to counter some of this trade IP theft that's been a big issue. And, if we see more resolution with trade, I think you are going to see more stability, more investment.
When they talk about trade on Wall Street and the market's reaction, one thing no one talks about to me enough is the fact that we have $360 billion in tariffs in place right now. 2 years ago, we were promised that it would crash the economy, that the inflation would go through the roof. Every expert was wrong. All the experts said it was going to destroy our economy. Here we are in an amazing period of this economic growth right now.
Yeah, record highs, Charles. And if you look at S&P company earnings, not really getting hit that hard from the tariffs either. I mean, earnings over the last quarter were down a couple percent. Not that bad, and they've been ratcheted down further, and the market hasn't reacted negatively. To your point about the tariffs, though, we get that trade deal that Monica talked about. You're start seeing tariffs maybe pop off. I mean, if China actually follows through on IP enforcement, we could pull back some of those tariffs, and then you could see earnings growth really in the S&P.
Because Friday, when President Trump called in Fox and Friends, he opined on the idea that, we're not going to have a 50-50 deal. It's not about equality. China has been getting over on America for a long time, and we're going to fix that. Now, a year ago, China would have come back with much more bluster. Instead, to your point, it looks like they might be blinking here.
They're blinking because they need us more than we need them. And it's really, when you look back at imports versus exports, the U.S. is a big economy that sustains itself. It's really consumer demand. Our exports are less than 13% of our economy. And to a certain extent, China is very opaque. You don't really know what's happening there, but it is hurting them much more than it's hurting us.
So now this year-end rally, a Santa Claus rally, maybe it's begun already. We're done with earnings season. Maybe this news will be here. What about USMCA also, Scott, and other potential drivers of this market, not just for the rest of the year, but going into next year?
I think USMCA would be great, Charles, but it's looking less and less likely that's going to go to the floor, obviously, based on certain, let's say, persuadances that we have out there from the left. So here's the thing. I think into the end of the year, the risk, though, to me, is that there could be some profit-taking. There could be some rebalancing that kicks in just generally along this time period as far as towards the end of the year for tax loss or tax gain harvesting. But with respect to next quarter, then you get into, we're only about a couple months away from the next earnings season, which could come in a little bit more better than expected, let's say, especially if the trade deal starts to work itself out.
You talked about being self-sustaining, so near all-time record lows on unemployment. Wages are surging. I believe wages are going to be over 4% next year. GDP could be over 3%. If we have something like that, how much further could we go? could we be talking Dow 33,000, Dow 34,000? And as a
not
pessimist,
next year.
No, okay.
Yeah,
that's only a 10%, maybe 15% rally from here.
Yeah, you might be right. It just, the number sounds so high, Charles.
It's a mind-boggling number,
cannot wrap my head around it. But the market is stable enough that you are seeing these mega mergers. So many of them were announced today with Schwab and LVMH, Tiffany's. So there's stability. And again, we're the best game in the world. You look at Europe, and it's very stagnant. When people think about investment, they think about the U.S. So with all the conflict that we face, we're still a really good market and a really strong economy.
And look at how low interest rates remain, too. That's the other thing. All the central banks are on board. The quantitative easing, I'm sorry, Jerome Powell, it started again. Okay, he doesn't want to call it that. So we've got our Fed pumping money in the system. You got central banks around the world at 0 or lower. That's going to just keep the fuel burning as far as the fire goes.
But ultimately, we need the American consumer, though, to remain upbeat and positive, right? Because that's really been the driving force to all of this.
I'll tell you what makes them feel great. Looking at the home values, looking at their 401ks, looking at their jobs, the fact They're getting more wages coming into a big holiday shopping season, man.
Some would call that the virtuous cycle.
I like it. Wealth effect.
So, yeah, and I think with homes, one of the big things is really trade. I speak to a lot of mortgage brokers. We're in the real estate industry, and even though rates have been coming down, they're not coming down with rates for the consumer, and it's because a lot of the banks are still looking at trade. Okay. When we see stability there, you're actually going to see interest rates for homeowners go down.
Hope so. Thank you both very much. To the best.